Hello, everyone, and welcome. Really great to have you here with us today. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Tara Moreau, and then I work at the UBC Botanical Garden. And joining me today are my daughters, Betsy and Etta. Come on in, guys. They're going to get started with us as we do our Earth Day exercise. I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This is for our live stream today. All the participant video and audio should be turned off. If you or your caregivers have a question, please use the chat function, which is part of the Zoom, and one of our moderators will respond to you as soon as possible. Please ensure that you use respectful and camp-appropriate language at all times. So we're going to get started with a bit of an Earth Day exercise. We want to make sure that you have a little bit of space around you. And also, it's not a bad time to have, we're going to do some coloring later, to have some markers or pastels or pencil crayons and some paper, because we're going to need that in a little bit. Okay, so what I wanted to do, and today is April 22nd, and this is a really important day for me. This is Earth Day, and we're here live streaming from our house in Vancouver, and while I'm recording here from our place, in our home, I want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded Coast Salish territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and giving this land acknowledgement is really important to me and in my work, but also today for Earth Day, as we are celebrating this great planet that we live on and all the biodiversity that thrives on this planet with goals today. Get started with a little bit of Earth Day exercise, and then we're going to explore some of the beautiful flowers that have been blooming in and around our neighborhood and in our backyard. I'm going to introduce parts of the flower to you. We'll learn a little bit about some plant botany and how flowers are the reproductive parts of plants. We're going to do some coloring of those plants and dissecting of those plants. And then we're going to look at a few photos of some cool bees pollinating some flowers. So to get started in our exercise, why don't we show our Earth Day exercise? There's 7 different steps that we're going to, I'm going to just move this down a little bit. There's 7 different steps that we're going to follow. So you can follow along with us. We're going to do this twice. Okay, everybody come in. So you can't really see our heads, but we're going to try this anyways. So our first move of our Earth Day exercise is we're going to try to be as tall as a tree. So let's get up on our tippy toes and raise our hands up to the sky, tall as a tree. And then you want to make sure you have a little bit of room here. We're going to go big as a bug. And we're going to expand and we're going to stretch out. And when we're big as a bug, why not here? We take a deep breath in and out. And then we're going to grow quite small. We're going to get down and we're going to be small as a little sprout. And here we are tiny as a little sprout. We're like a little bud. And what we're going to do then is cross your legs and sit firmly on the ground. And we're going to raise our hands up. Oh, we're full like a beautiful flower. And with your hands raised, I want you to take a deep breath in. And then we're going to paint our hands like pollination happening here. Here we are pollinating flowers. And then our next stage is to grab your knees and put your feet together, and we're going to move our legs up and down like a butterfly. And we're gonna be a beautiful butterfly. Here we got our good butterfly legs. And then finally what we're going to do is extend your legs really long in front of you. Point your toes. And we're going to fold our whole body over. And we're going to be flat and like a seed. So stretch. Take a deep breath in once you're stretched. Deep breath in and out. And then our seeds, we're gonna do that once more. So let's get up. And from our seeds, we're gonna grow tall as a tree onto our tippy toes, stretch to the ceiling. Okay, and then we would need a little bit of room. Ready, Anna? Big as a bug. Oh yes, Betsy, we need you in here. We want you big as a bug too. Okay. All right, we're super small. Take a deep breath in. It's hard to take a deep breath when you're really small. And now we cross our legs. And with our legs crossed, let's put our hands in the air. Oh, wow, you guys are such beautiful flowers. Okay, let's start our pollination. Oh, perfect. And then from pollination, are we gonna have our butterflies? So we put our feet together and you move your legs up and down. Oh yes. Flies. And then finally, we're going to become our seed. So stretch your legs long, point your toes, and then we're gonna fold our body right over. Oh, we're gonna stretch out like a seed in the soil waiting to grow. Oh, well, that feels really great. And that is our Earth Day exercise following the life cycle of plants. So thank you, Betsy and Etta. We really appreciate that you came and helped. They helped me design that exercise as well. So thank you very much. I'm gonna do a grand finale exit. Okay. So now I'm going to just get myself set up here at the table, and I'm going to point this screen down here, and I wanted to, let me just make sure we're getting set up, pull and show you some of the beautiful blooms that I collected from our neighborhood. So I have 5 plants here today, and I'm gonna start with this one. It is the most fragrant. So here we go. This beautiful plant. Does anyone know what it is? If you know what it is, you can say it out loud. On 3, we'll say 1, 2, 3. Magnolia. This is a beautiful white magnolia that's blooming just outside on the street. Magnolias come in an array of colors. You can have white or yellow and pinks. And this one is particularly fragrant. It smells so delicious. Okay, so that's the magnolia. Here's another one. This one's called and this one is beautiful. It's got a funny common name. They call it elephant ears. And this one you'll see has big leaves. It grows more as a smaller plant. And many of the blooms right now are just about to die, but they're just beautiful. I also wanted to highlight and show you one of my favorite tools as a botanist and as a scientist is what I use as my hand lens. So this is a hand lens, and you might not have one of these at home, but maybe you have a magnifying glass or a small microscope that you might want to use. You don't have to use one of these to look at flowers, but I like to, because when you can look up really close, you see all the cool parts of the flower. You can also use this to look at bugs up really close. It's a really handy tool. So I'm going to put this one down. I want to show you one of my other favorite blooms, and I'm hoping that you guys could identify what this beautiful flower is. If you're in your room, you can say it. We'll say it all together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Cherries! Aren't they gorgeous? So our streets right now in Vancouver are just lined with blooming trees of cherry trees. Again, this one's a pale pink one, but you can have deep, dark pink ones or lighter ones. It's a little bit fragrant. It's not very fragrant. I also wanted to show, this is really neat. A lot of people don't necessarily look up close at flowers of a maple tree. And so I just wanted to show you some examples. These are very tiny flowers. And again, a hand lens or a magnifying glass up close. The city, many of them are blooming. And so those are other flowers that you can explore in your backyard or on your streets or when you're doing a walk in your neighborhood. And the last flower I wanted to show, I didn't actually cut this one from my neighborhood because I didn't want to take anyone's tulip. So I bought this one, but this is a gorgeous pink tulip. Isn't that great? So what we wanted to do is talk a little bit about flowers and what they do. Flowers are really important because they house all the reproductive parts of a plant. So plants, like animals and people, have male and female parts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move these flowers off just for a second. I'll be right back. And I wanted to introduce, I'm going to try to show, here we go. We're going to go through some of the key parts of a flower. Flowers, there's a whole science to understanding flowers. And so today I'm going to show you some key parts, but if you're interested in flowers and they're parts of the flowers, there's really great images. You can learn a lot about the botany of flowers. Today I'm going to show you three main parts. So we have petals. The petals here are pink/red. Petals are often the really bright and colorful parts of the flower. They also give flowers very much their distinctive shape. So we're going to have our, and as I mentioned, flowers have male and female parts on them. So I'm going to start here and introduce you to the male parts of the flower, which are stamen. So I'm going to build out the stamen here. So I'm going to start here with our filaments. And at the top of these long filaments, they look like little hot dogs. These are called our anthers. So I'm going to build our anthers onto our stamen here. And what you can do, a really cool thing when looking at flowers, is to count the number of stamen. So let's do that together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stamen. Okay, great. So the stamen, I told you, are the male parts of the flower. And so these anther, these little hot dog bodies, they produce the pollen, which makes up pollination. And pollination is my favorite biological process. It is so fascinating to study all of the species and the interactions between plants and insects and bats, and many things can be involved in pollination. So what I've done, my pollen today is I'm gonna do it here. I took our 3-hole punch, and I took all our little punches, and I'm gonna make this our pollen. And our pollen comes from our anthers. So here we go. We have our pink petals. We have our male stamen here with our pollen grains on them. And so some plants have flowers that have male parts, and some plants have flowers that have female parts. And some plants have male and female parts on the flower. This is an example of a flower with male, and this is the female part of the flower. So this is called our pistil. Here at the top, we have our stigma. This is our style, and then down here, they look like little green peas. This is the ovary with all the ovules. And pollination refers to the transfer of our pollen grains to the top, and they land on the female part of our flower. They're sticking to my hands, but they land on the female part of the flower, which leads to fertilization of our ovules. And then our ovules will turn into our fruit and our seeds. So what happens is here we have our flower. And at times, pollination can happen by wind, by water, bats. Today we're going to talk about pollination. This is my little bee that I've created here. And it doesn't look anatomically correct, but this is what we're working with. And this bee today is going to help us with pollination. So this bee is actually going to the flowers to search for food. It's looking for pollen, and it's going to eat the nectar. And the nectar is a sweet syrup from the flowers. It's the nectar that makes the flowers smell so beautiful. So our bee today is going to help us. He's looking to eat some pollen, and along the way, our bee is picking up pollen and moving around the flower, and he's accidentally dropping some pollen onto the female part. And so now, and many bees might visit this one flower in one day. And so eventually a few days passes and our flower begins to die and fall off. So beautiful, you can walk under a cherry tree and all the petals are falling. So our petals might fall off and our stamen might fall away. And I'm gonna leave one petal on the back of this guy. And here we have our ovary with our ovules that have been fertilized. And so this part now, as the flower dies, will grow into the fruit, and the fruit will hold the seeds, and that's how the life cycle of the plant continues. So that's our introduction to the parts of the flower. So I'm just going to move our parts of the flower a little bit further back. That was our abstract parts of the flower. So now I thought it would be really cool if we actually dissect a real flower. So I'm just going to grab my supplies. Okay. So for dissecting a flower, this is something that you'll want to have your parents help you out with. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that tulip that I showed you earlier, that beautiful tulip. Okay, and I'm going to put it down here on the cutting board, and I'm going to take off 3 of the petals. And there's just a quick note here. So these, on a tulip, they're actually not called petals, they're called tepals, because tepals, and on a tulip, it's a combination of a petal and a sepal called tepals. It gets a little bit confusing, so for today, I'm just going to refer to them as the petals. I'm going to take off 3 of the petals, and often if you take off a petal, and you can strong, but that's where you can often smell cool parts of the flower. And actually, what I see in this flower is there's a number of pollen grains that have landed on the flower itself. But I'm going to lay this down because we are going to dissect this and look inside of it. But first, let's count. Remember, we counted the stamen on our previous example. I'm going to count these ones. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stamen, and they produce the pollen. And then right here in the middle, we have the female, the pistil, and the top, which is often quite sticky. This one's not super sticky yet, but the top here is what we call our stigma. So I'm going to cut it and see if we can look and actually see the ovaries of this plant. So I've opened it up, and usually as the plant is a little bit more mature, oh, actually, I think you can. They're very tiny. And this is where I would use my hand lens to look at, but it looks like is all of my ovary with my ovules is really tiny, but right inside there. So this is something that you can either look at out in nature, or you can also look this up and look at pictures online. So now that we've got the real McCoy in front of us, our real flower, I'm going to position it, and now you want to grab your coloring materials, because we're going to try to color what this tulip looks like. So I'm going to pull together our paper. And so coloring is a great way of getting to look closely at plants or any parts of nature. Because when you have to color it, you have to understand its shape and its form and its colors. And I love to color different species as a way of understanding them better. So I'm going to start with my pastels. And here I'm going to show, we know we have our stem. So there we go, perfect. So I'm going to draw this piece here. So we have our stem, and we kind of, it's somewhat disconnected, our leaf now, but I'm going to bring that here. And now I'm going to draw what we've just been learning about. So we counted the 6 stamen, and they kind of look like a dark purple. So I'm going to have, looks like there's 3 stamen on this side and 3 stamen here. And I remember I cut the female piece right in half, and it looks kind of like a light yellow. So I'm going to show half of it here and half of it here. And as we start to get this colored through, now I want to add our petals. Here we go. And then I have a rough image of our dissected tulip here. And the really cool thing about pastels, why I like to use them, but you don't have to use them, you can use markers, is that you can color them in, and when you bring in more than one color, you can also blend the colors together in a neat and cool way. So I'm going to finish coloring this in. I also like to add a little bit of different shades of green to my stem. And whenever I do a picture of some flowers, then what I like to do is write my name on it. And I always like to put what plant it is, so that I can remember and learn my plant names. So this one is a tulip, and it's by me, and my name is Tara. And there we go. Tara draws a tulip. And so you can go and color lots of different photos using different things and explore and understand better what the parts are. The last thing I wanted to show you in this cool dissected tulip is I pulled out the male part, which is the stamen. And what I wanted to show you, I'm going to stand up and show you here, you can actually sometimes color with the stamen. It kind of is coming through, and you can see the pollen grains on the paper. Sometimes the pollen is yellow and different colors, orange, and actually sometimes it can hold really nicely on paper. So it's really cool to look and dissect your flower and then to see what the pollen looks like inside. These are all tiny, tiny little microscopic grains. And again, you can look at them up close. If you go, you can even look at pollen grains under a microscope online. There's some beautiful colors to look and explore pollen. So what I was going to do now is I'm just going to move part of this. Hold on one second. Okay, so now I wanted to continue us talking about pollination, but I wanted to share my screen and show you some cool pictures of bees and butterflies. So I'm just going to share my screen and pop over here and get that set up. So this is what I like to call our plan B. And so I love bees. I think they're one of my favorite insects that we can explore and understand.
what I wanted to show you, here's some pictures of bees. Aren't they so cute and fuzzy? And here they are, busy working away on a flower. This is a picture I took last summer on a tour that we run at the Botanical Garden. This is our beekeeper, and he's there working, tending and taking care of our bees. And so one of our groups last year got to see him. He uses a smoker to slow the bees down so he can take them out and look and make sure that they're healthy and happy. So we are really lucky to have beehives at the garden, and some tours we get to often see the beehives, and if we're really lucky, we get to see the beekeeper. Here's him, and he pulls out part of the hive, and we can see that those are bees all over that part of the hive that he's removed. He wears a mask to protect himself. He also, you can't see it in the picture, but he has a smoker, and that's really interesting to see how the bees get really quiet and kind of slow moving with the smoker. One of my favorite things to do with bees is to eat honey and to explore honey. So this is a picture. I like to make honey tasting stations, and what's so neat about honey is that you can, different types of honey can taste differently depending on where and what flowers the bees are pollinating. So in this example, I have 5 different types of honey. We have fireweed honey. So it's bees have been placed in a field of fireweed plants. So it tastes a little bit like the plant. We have chestnut honey, which is a deep, dark honey. We have honey from the UBC Botanical Garden. That tastes different every single year, which is really fun and exciting. We have blueberry honey. So as you guessed it, those are bees that are put in a blueberry field, and it kind of takes on a flavor of blueberries. And then we have buckwheat honey, which is the thickest, densest honey. It tastes like a molasses. This is my friend's pizza box that she likes to carry around. And within this pizza box, she always keeps her different specimens. So she's an entomologist. She specializes in identifying and looking at species of bees. And this is her collection. These collections are really important to scientists so that we can properly identify species, so that we know what lives in our neighborhood and what species we have. This was just a close-up of a cute bee, and I wanted to point out here that we can often tell the difference between a bee and a wasp because bees have lots of hair. You can see here on its body, it's got lots of hair. He's got long antennae, or she has long antennae. Bees and wasps, they can sometimes look a lot alike. I love wasps. I know people get nervous around wasps, but I think wasps are just as cool as bees are. So this is a video I wanted to just showcase. This was one I took last summer of 2 bumblebees busy pollinating. The bee on the left, you can see on its back leg, it has a big pollen sac, and that big orange sac is where it's storing pollen, and it takes the pollen with it as it goes on its way. This is my last video that I wanted to show, and this bumblebee made me laugh. I thought this was so funny. He is just totally covered, or she is, pardon me, is just totally covered in pollen. That flower is a hibiscus flower, and that bee is just laden with pollen all over its wings and its legs and its arms. And so bumblebees are amazing to watch. When they fly, it always looks like they might not totally be able to make it. And imagine with all of that pollen, it's going to be even harder for that bumblebee to move on its way. I wanted to just showcase there's other types of bumblebees. There's not just one type of bumblebee. These are some buttons we made last year of the top 3 types of bumblebees that we found on campus at the UBC garden and at the UBC farm. So 3 types of bumblebees are Bombus mixtus, our Bombus vosneskinii, and our Bombus flavifrons. And you can see here, it's very subtle, the difference between these different types of bumblebees. They have different patterns and shapes, similar to flowers that we use to distinguish and compare different species. And this bird photo I wanted to show because this is one of my favorite birds, and we see the Anna's hummingbird in Vancouver all year round. This is a male Anna's hummingbird, and in the winter, hummingbirds, generally the males are a little bit brighter. These are some butterflies. There's some great tools if you like to get out into nature. This is observations from iNaturalist, which is an app I use on my phone, and we go and we look at local plants, and you can also use it to look at local butterflies. These are some beautiful butterflies. There's some on the screen here that we see. There's a West Coast lady, a painted lady, the Western tiger swallowtail. They often, people think they look like a monarch butterfly, but we don't get a lot of monarch butterflies here in Vancouver. Some people have reported seeing them, but traditionally it is one of these other butterflies that kind of look like a monarch, but aren't actually a monarch. I just wanted to go back and highlight what I thought was really cool. It was a photo, it was on the front page of the New York Times 50 years ago today. It was the first Earth Day. And since that time, in over 50 years, Earth Day is our day every year to bring people together to talk about nature and how do we stand up for nature and help protect it. If you're interested in plants, there's a lot of resources that you could go look at. The Grow Green Guide is a project that the UBC Botanical Garden does with Metro Vancouver. You can look at different plants, you can look at different garden designs. The garden website is a great place and a great resource. We have some online forums, we have blogs that we write about plants and pollinators and butterflies. So we hope you can go check that out, and we hope you can come and visit us once we're back open. Much of my flower lesson today, I drew inspiration from this resource called Green Thumbs at School by SPEC, the Society Promoting Environmental Conservation. They have a lesson on the parts of the flower. That's a resource that's freely available on their website, so you can download that. And I use that to guide me when I dissected and we did our flower activity earlier on. And as we finish up, these were just some examples of us taking a short walk to one of the small parks near our house and finding some flowers and doing some drawings. It's a wonderful way to spend our days and to look closely at nature and enjoy nature. And with that, I want to say thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you've learned a little bit about Earth Day and about the parts of the flower. You can do your exercise if you want to wake up and if you can remember some of those stages, or watch it again and do your Earth Day exercise. And a little bit of housekeeping. UBC Camps has another session tomorrow, Thursday, April 23rd, from 3:30 to 4 for children's ages 9 to 12. You're going to learn about stop motion animation, which is so exciting. This session has been recorded and will be posted on UBC Camp's YouTube channel if you want to watch it again later or share your experience on social media if you like. You can tag at UBC Camps on Instagram or UBC Camps on Facebook. And with that, thank you so much for joining. It was really fun to share with you our Earth Day exercise and to have you learn a little bit about flowers. And I hope you can go out into your neighborhood and explore flowers, and you can share back all your lessons with your friends. Thank you so much and have a great day.